Welcome to Hardcover News. I'm Brittany Liani.
And I'm Akeem Hogan.
Today's segment is about teen violence. Violence has struck our communities in different ways.
Fights in schools, gang fights, riots.
Our hardcover team went out to get CPS students' perspectives on the violence in and out of school.
What do you feel about teen violence in school?
I think teen violence is wrong because lately kids been getting beat up for the wrong reasons.
Too many kids dying.
Yeah.
And as a mother, you don't want to go through that.
Well, it's hard to hear that on the news, when you hear about kids being shot and hurt and beat up for absolutely no reason at all.
What are the main causes of fights on school grounds?
Over some he say, she say stuff, tell the truth.
Because people are ignorant and they, just want to start because of little stuff.
It's rumors because one person could hear something, but instead of going to the source, they'll just take it and then they'll deal with it in their own matter.
Over silly stuff, because another girl called another girl a bad word and they just want to fight. It's stupid.
People are too busy listening to drama and getting into he said, she said when they should actually be focusing on themselves and on their work instead of focusing on everybody else around them.
At a student level, because maybe they're trying to prove a point, maybe they have taken as much as they're going to take from somebody if they're being bullied.
Do you think fights in school are connected to violence outside of school?
Yeah, very much so, because there's a lot of gang fights. Like, if you're in a gang and somebody from another crew doesn't like you, they'll come up to you in school.
If something happened like on the block, they say then they would bring it to the school and then they'll solve it in school, like fights, lunchroom riots and stuff like that.
Yeah, they don't care. They don't stop nothing. They didn't chase people out of gas stations, beat them up, brought guns in school. Personally, you ask me, it's crazy, and they ain't stopping it.
According to the Associated Press, before 2006, there was an average of 10 to 15 deaths in Chicago public schools. That rose to 24 deaths and 211 shootings in 2007. And in 2008, there were 34 deaths and 290 shootings.
Just a few months ago, the world watched as Darian Albert, a 6-year-old young man, killed in a gang fight near Finger High School.
I recently made contact with Azam Ahmed of the Chicago Tribune, who reports on teen violence and school policies. I'm Brittany Liani, and this is Azam Ahmed. He's a reporter for the Chicago Tribune. What do you think are the main reasons why teen violence happens?
Teen violence occurs for a lot of different reasons. It's often income issues. Poverty is a big predictor of violence. Cultures of violence, certain neighborhoods where there's a lot of crime, drug trafficking, robberies, things like that. Gang involvement is also a major feeder of youth violence, I think. But more primary is income inequality, I think. When you go to the areas where gangs thrive and where crime is rampant, tend to be areas with the lowest income. In some cases, a lot of people will say things like school closings, for instance. When students from one school leave and have to go to another school, have to cross gang boundaries or be in the same building as an unfamiliar group of kids, sometimes people say that causes more youth violence. When people hear that school kids are being killed, it makes it much more, desperate and catches much more attention. A lot of kids in Chicago public schools are subjected to levels of violence that I think if those levels occurred elsewhere, there would be a lot more outrage. Stuff from the street spills into school and then spills back out into the streets. So if you have a conflict with somebody in the neighborhood and you guys go to school together, the next day you're going to see them at school, and sometimes that's all it takes. You just have to see the person. Sometimes kids would walk several blocks out of the way just to avoid crossing a certain area, so it does have an impact on high school kids. On elementary kids growing up in these areas know what the score is, and they know that they've got to be careful, and there's a certain, amount of pressure that it puts on a kid to the point when he's, when he or she is 16, they joke about it. I was on the bus with one young man, and he, and these two adults almost got into a fight, and the kids were laughing and joking about it, like it was just an everyday occurrence at 7:30 in the morning on a CTA bus. It is a societal problem. It's much bigger than individuals. It does involve parents very much. It involves, somebody once explained to me that so many of the kids who end up on the other end of a gun or end up shooting are failed in so many different ways before they ever have that gun in their hand.
This drove Chicago Public Schools CEO Ron Huberman to create a new plan to decrease the violence.
Hardcover's Vanessa Alvarez sat down with Drew Barris in the CEO's office so he can discuss Huberman's plan.
Sure, my name is Drew Barris, and I work as the special assistant to the CEO here at the Chicago Public Schools. What we wanted to do is everyone has their attitude and their preconceived notions about what risks a student might be facing, who the troublesome students are, what to be worried about. We wanted to kind of move past that and say, here's a hard and fast statistical, scientific model to the best we can that exists on its own. 500 CPS students roughly have been shot in the last 2 school years. What we did is we took a very hard look at all 500 of those students. So we wanted to know what were their attendance patterns like. Were they getting in trouble in school when they were attending school? Were they involved in fights? Were they doing their homework? Were they getting good grades? Were they on track to graduate? And we're talking only about high school students here. We began to see a trend, and the trend was the students that were shot were likely to have attended about 40% of the school days, were very likely to be involved in misconducts when they were in school, and some of them were at a greater likelihood to be homeless than students that weren't shot. And we basically built a large equation, an algorithm that controlled for these variables and said, look, this is kind of a regression, a statistical model for risk of being shot. You then applied that model to every high school student in Chicago. So everyone in the room here went through that model. If you're in that first group, so that group of 250 students, you're given a mentor through a program called the Youth Advocate Program. And also these kids will get jobs. So, it's not going to be a high-paying job, but it's something that gets them a sense of responsibility and something to show up to every day to try to give them extra money in their pocket and also show them that, look, there's a different way.
And now Vanessa Alvarez will give us her comments about the plan.
I had the great opportunity to interview someone from CPS headquarters. Before this, of course, I had my reservations. I felt that using statistics might not be the best way to choose the students most at risk of violence. As a student, I think it would be best to use not only the principals but also teachers, since they could get to know their students through the regular school day. My biggest disagreement was CPS focusing mainly on the so-called bad students only. I thought they should take care of all students and not only offer this opportunity to those who were chosen. I felt that the way they pick students might single them out. After meeting with Mr. Barris, I understood CPS perspective. Making a difference in these kids' lives will hopefully help the school environment as a whole.
Whether or not we agree with the plan, we all want to secure a better future for our community.
The schools can help, but not unless we help ourselves. The real plan in order to end violence begins with us.
Until next time, this is Hardcover News. Peace.